Should we all just slow down, first of all? And should we all just be here? You understand, do you not, that you have no other place to be than right here? And right here, right now. You don't even have 1 second ago. You have right now. I'd like to talk, rather than give you a talk tonight, just talk pretty casually, slowly, leisurely, and yet quite profoundly to you about a very profound subject, something that is on your mind all the time, 24 hours of the day. Let me start by asking you a question. Would it be a fair question to say that truly and honestly, you just don't know what you're supposed to be doing with your life here on earth? I didn't ask you whether you knew that you're supposed to get up and clean the house in the morning or go to work at 9 o'clock or carry out all those many, many plans that you have for your career, your vacation, or for your retirement, or whatever. I ask you whether you really know what you're not only supposed to do with your whole life, but what you're supposed to do with the day, with the hour, with the minute, with right now. And I must tell you that you really don't know what to do with it. You're in conflict over it, unaware that you're in conflict for the most part. You're concerned with it, you're in strain over it. In short, you are indeed a bundle of strain which has no idea really, honestly, of what it's supposed to be doing with itself as a man, as a woman, here on this place we call Earth. Furthermore, you must agree with this, if you're beginning to have the self-honesty that will get you out of it, you must agree that you never have known what you're supposed to be doing with yourself. Keep it as simple as that. Now, don't you understand that when you even ask the question, what am I supposed to be doing with myself as a human being here on earth, that you've already distorted it, made a problem where none exists and never did? If you can even examine today the thoughts and the feelings and the attitudes and the impulses and the compulsions that went through your mind, you will see that they carried you. They carried you away all day long, kept you in turmoil, in confusion. You had no idea of what you're supposed to be doing with yourself. Now, let me tell you something. Whether you see it presently or not, there is a way to be, and I'll try to say this as many ways as I can, there is a way to be so detached from who you think you are, so free from all your petty little ambitions and plans, so apart from your, listen to this, so apart from your own mind that it doesn't make much difference what you do. The only thing that makes a difference is on the everyday level. You have to do certain things in order to obtain food, in order to keep the physical body protected from the weather, from the traffic or whatever. There is a way to live in which you have no concern at all. Can you conceive such a state where you're not worried about anything at all? You can't, can you? All right, let's find out about this business of worry again. We've covered it before. Now you watch what happens to your mind when I ask you the next question. You watch your own reaction when I ask you this. Why are you worried over anything whatever? Has no one ever told you, up to this point in your life, that there is no reason to be worried over anything whatever? Hasn't anyone told you that before? Or have they told you that before and you rejected it because of the pleasure of your present state? Oh, because of the painful pleasure of your present state, in which worry is very valuable to you, and which, incidentally, you're completely unaware of how you've been captured by it throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout your whole life. If I could give you a magic pill tonight, pick up a bottle and give each one of you a magic pill, which would instantly and forever dissolve all your conflicts and tensions and worries, how many of you would take it? How many of you... How many of you would refuse it? How many of you don't know what you'd do? Of course, that is simply an illustration, and I guarantee you, if such a pill existed, you'd never take it. You know why? You'd be too scared. We've covered this before, but let's see. What would you do without your jealousy? What would you do without feeling cheated by life? Do you know what you would do if you did indeed take the authentic pill of truth, which freed you from all these things? Do you know what you would do? Well, I'll tell you to begin with. You'd get up in the morning in an entirely different way. Rather than thinking that here's another day in which you have to conquer, which is exactly how you get up, and you don't even know it. You crawl out of that bed with the idea, the groan perhaps, here is another day I have to conquer, or worse, endure and get through. If I can just make it till 5 o'clock when the factory whistle blows, or whatever, I think I can make it okay because my favorite TV program comes on at 7 o'clock. I want to emphasize a point. The most fearful thing you and I can ever encounter as men, as women, here on earth, the most fearful thing we can ever encounter is the idea that we could be free of our chains. And if you don't think so, you watch and see how you fight with emotion, with persistence, and with anger, and even with hatred. Fight the idea that there is a truth that can set you free. I'm going to tell you something. There is a truth that can set you free or me free. Fact. No opinion, not something you read in a religious book. There is the truth that can set you free. How come it hasn't? Whose fault do you think it is, to put it in the simplest way I can think of? Whose fault do you think it is? God's or yours? Oh, maybe God is faulty. Truth is not concerned enough with you. which is simply thought, delusion, nonsensical chattering of your mind. You must enjoy quite a bit the fighting and the turmoil that goes on inside of you. You must be terrified of the idea that there could be a reaction, a response to all challenges of life that does not consist of who you presently think you are. You must be absolutely terrified at the very idea of giving up the usual, the known, the familiar, in favor of something that's completely foreign to you. If we could only see it, if we could only catch a very small glimpse of it, this foreign idea, this new way to handle life, this new one is the friend instead of the foe which we presently think it is. You watch. The next time you get disturbed over anything, you watch and try to simply drop it right now and see whether you can do it or not. Do you know why you can't do it? Shall I tell you, especially for those of you who are here new perhaps? You're afraid of not being you. This is the secret of the ages. I don't care how many times you've heard this fact, and I don't care how many times you've heard it before or hear it in the future. If you begin to see that the one great fear we have is the fear of not being neurotic. Now, what kind of sense does that make? Oh, you think this doesn't apply to you? What kind of a day did you have today? What kind of a week did you have? How many times did you fight mentally with someone? What an awful sickness every one of us must have, that we fight the very thing that could make us free of our sickness. This leads us to the conclusion, back to the fact that we prefer being sick. We prefer being sick to finding the truth itself, which means you be very, very careful in your statements, in your declarations, that you want the truth. Because if you are still suffering from anything at all, you don't. I'll give you about 10 seconds to turn your attention back on today and on your own experience today, last week. And you tell me what you suffered from, and I will tell you what you authentically love. You suffered from nervousness in any situation at all? I know that you loved your nervousness in preference to God Almighty. You loved your bitterness, thinking about the past, what happened to you in the past. You love that. That's the reason you have it. That's the reason, even as you are sitting here in this room at 10 minutes to 8 on this Friday evening, the reason you are suffering from this bitterness of the past right now, sitting in this room unaware of it, is because you prefer that to the truth. Which leads us to the purpose of this class. The purpose in us coming here is to see with great despair, if necessary, with great tears and great anguish if necessary, to see the horrible mess. Never mind that mess that the outer world is in. What about your mess? What about mine? To see how scared we are. Let me see the hands of those of you who are scared. Don't you lie about it. To see how scared we are as a first step in a shocking self-honesty that can begin to set us free from our own fear. Listen, this is beautiful. That begin to set us free of the fear of being who we presently are. What we presently are. I have great news for you tonight. I have the liberating news that whatever you see in yourself, those shameful things you did, those terrible sex things, those vicious things, those insane things, those lying things that you see in yourself are not a part of your real nature at all. But you don't know this yet. You don't know this yet because you've been so terrified as to see what a terrible 100%, I'm going to use the word, what a terrible 100% sinner you are. See, that scares you, does it not? To see all these secret things inside of you that you're glad that other people don't see. Those are big things. How about some little things that you don't see? This room is filled with blabbermouths. And these blabbermouths do not even know that they are blabbermouths. And the reason I know that is because during the break, you will blabbermouth. Right? Would you like to be free of the compulsion to be a blabbermouth? Mentally, emotionally. Little children, the paddles that you can get in this class, the psychological paddles, are absolutely necessary for you to grow up, to become mature mentally, emotionally, psychologically. If you run away from this class, from the teachings, physically or emotionally or mentally, that is, if you prefer to go into hurt feelings when you're paddled, then how can you learn the lesson in the paddling? If you run away and blame whoever paddles you, or say, I didn't deserve that, or why does this happen to me, you're not going to learn the beautiful lesson contained in your own pain. Don't you understand at all that your own agony, used rightly, can begin to free you from your agony? Do you know that when you get angry at your agony, you refuse the lesson in it that could set you free? One lesson being, this agony has connection with you only because you are yet deluded, because you use your mind incorrectly, you use your life incorrectly, because you love the pain of it instead of loving the liberty from it. And it's as simple as that if you could see it. Some of you I've known for quite a while, 2 or 3 years, some of you longer than that. You can't be paddled very hard, and I know it. Because I see your facial expressions, and I see the sign that you put up. Don't come any closer. Fair enough. I don't. Why don't you take this sign down? Your defensive signs that says, I would like to come to these classes and listen to these talks and talk about them to other people and read books and tell other people how great the class is. When are you going to do something for yourself, for who you really are? by being willing to take a lot more than your obvious signs to me tell me that you want to take. The lesson you need in order to break out of the pain of your own delusions, and all pain is simply delusion, the lesson you need is ready for each one of you in this room. You could even have it tonight if you wanted to. The lesson you need to take the next step outside of yourself is ready for you tonight. So what is your state tonight? Receptive to it? Or you still want to cling to your wife or your husband or your friend quite unconsciously and talk about these things instead of realizing you have to be all alone in this and submit all alone to this so that you don't have anyone, so that you throw yourself, God help you, completely back on yourself when you have a crisis, so that there's no comfort and no one to help you, so that there's nothing there but pure hell. At this point, I congratulate you. For you have been willing to enter the fires of your own hell, which is your jealousies, your hatreds, your loneliness. You have obeyed God for the first time in your life, which is your prayer, and God will answer it by burning you up. If all you can bear, if all you can endure at the start is a very small flame, fine, that's quite acceptable to truth. Then that is the very small, little, gentle lesson you get in the destruction of who you think you are. If you can bear that, then you bear that, and God will be faithful to give you a flame twice as hot the next time. By entering hell, you destroy it. By entering hell, you destroy it. Entering into it in a new way. Entering into it consciously, entering into it with a certain degree of intelligence which has been given to you because you've asked for it, with a degree of submission, with a degree of an active, energetic prayer, which is, don't let me be any longer who I am. Please, I beseech you. That prayer will be answered. God never answers any prayer that says, let me remain as I am. Let me put a label on myself and call myself a Christian, or call myself a student, or call myself religious, or call myself pious. All that is nonsense. It has nothing whatever to do with true religion, with God, with truth. The only prayer truth, God, reality will answer is the prayer for you to cease to exist as the liar that you presently are. God loves that. You know what? The miracle of being born again, the miracle of authentic inner transformation will begin and will operate right before your own eyes. And you won't need any other human being to tell you that it's happening, as if any other human being can tell you that it's happening. You will know, and you will know who from. You will know from truth itself, from reality itself, from God himself, that the tears are authentically falling away because there's nothing to cry about anymore. There's nothing to cry about anymore. I'm in no hurry, are you? There is evidence that everything we have covered so far this evening, there's evidence, there's proof that it is true. There's proof that what we've talked about, that this inner transformation can happen to you. The proof is obtained by you doing your part, by submission to something that is not your own neurosis. By submission to something that is not your self-will. You can have your will and you're welcome to it. Or you can begin to submit to something that is not a part of your hatred, not a part of your fighting. And the beautiful evidence that there is a God, which you don't presently know, by the way, and those of you listening to this tape don't know. You think you do, but you don't. The evidence that God actually exists, and exists in human beings as a pure force, as an authentic force, the evidence can be known by this lady sitting in the group, by this young man sitting in this group, and by the rest of you personally. Are you willing to come back? Not necessarily to this class, but that's a part of it. Willing to come back 60 times every hour when you're out there in that working world, or when you're home tonight or wherever. Come back and ask yourself, where am I right now? And when you know where you are right now, you are no longer keeping the impulse of neurosis which separates us from truth going. So will you all strike a blow for your own inner transformation right now by relaxing right where you are and being conscious that you're in this room. Be conscious of the relation of your physical body to everyone else in this room. Simply knowing that you're here, not thinking about it. If you think about it, you'll ruin everything, because that will bring the past in. But simply knowing that you're a free and complete human being at 5 minutes after 8 on this Friday evening, which is a fact, whether you're aware of it or not, but the awareness will begin the self-transformation by which you will know from yourself. And that knowing from yourself is God himself. What a beautiful way to live. What a beautiful way to live, to begin to find ourselves, who we really are. That old nature wasn't much of a friend, was it? It lied to us, didn't it? Didn't it? It lied to you, didn't it? It lied to me, didn't it? Thank heaven, truth never lies, but gives us only what's good for us. It knows I don't know what's good for me, and neither do you. But truth knows. And when we live that way, we'll know what to do with ourselves every minute of the day, every second, because it doesn't make any difference. We are free. Nothing to prove anymore. Just to be right, just to be true. This is what we authentically want. And this is what we authentically can have. Can you not see the possibility of you doing something without self-concern? You take some small little action you have to do during your day, and you just try to do it without self-reference, without self-concern. The most important feature of that being, you try to find out who is being concerned over this event or what you call a crisis. Look at it. And if you feel scared, find out why you feel scared, and you refuse it. See, you're not awake enough to refuse it, are you? It's got you right now. Wake up. Then you can refuse the fear. Then you see beyond, in back of that fear, if there's anyone authentic there to be afraid, and you won't find anyone. You yourself were the fear. Understand the fear, understand its false power, dissolve it, then see if there's any real person back there to be afraid. There isn't. There's only the movement of fear, which you have identified with, which you have called by your name, Tom, Mary, whatever. You have called by your name, and therefore kept the shaking going. Kept the resentment and the bitterness going. Kept the frozen little shell. How many of you live in a frozen little shell? Of course you do. I can see your faces. I can see your manner. I can see, ladies, gentlemen, how afraid you are to get hurt. Right?
Right.
Did it ever occur to you to just let yourself get hurt? Didn't it ever occur to you when that person says something mean about you just to feel hurt and see what's going on inside of you instead of lashing back, instead of going into your mind with 1,000 ideas, feelings to counteract the pain? Someday you'll be able to refuse the pain. Your awareness of the situation, your wide-awake state, can refuse the entrance of the pain, of you getting your feelings hurt. And you will be the king of the world. You will have overcome the world. Queen of the world. Not now, though, huh? Now, am I looking at slaves of the world? The world has you scared, doesn't it? Ah, come on, admit it. The slightest thing can set you off. You're scared. Aren't you glad that you don't have to be scared anymore? That there is a way out? Aren't you glad? Maybe you don't understand it yet. You don't have it yet. But what a pleasure to begin to lead a new life in which little by little you can chop away at the roots of all these vines that have been clutching at you inwardly. Or if you wish, and it's your life, you can just submit to your anxieties. You can submit to them and fight them and try to find friends who will help you to fight them. And they will only make it worse, by the way, and it's your fault for trying to find allies. What do you think you can get from another person? Why do you cling so desperately to that other person? Why are you so possessive of him or her? Why are you so jealous of him or her? He has nothing for you, ladies. Sir, she has nothing for you. You're just ruining each other. You could begin to help each other if you both wanted it badly enough. Okay, and then I'll stop and we'll have open discussion, but I want to say this because I know how important it is. If you don't want what you've heard here tonight, you can choose to reject it. You can choose to go right back to your lying friends. And in your attempt to use them, they will attempt to use you. And you will destroy yourself trying to get something from them. You can go back to your lying friends if you want. But you cannot serve two masters. You can serve the master of your mere idea that that other person has something for you, or you can serve truth. You can serve the delusions of your own mind, of your own spirit, or you can begin to serve the truth that could liberate you from your own delusions. Ye cannot serve two masters. You just try it, and you'll see that it is impossible. If one small part of us resolves wholly, totally, to begin to serve the truth itself, that part can grow and begin to conquer through hard work on your part, all these other parts that want to serve the lies that are ripping us apart. You stop worshiping your own sickness. That is exactly what you're doing. You are worshiping your own sickness, and have you ever heard anything stranger than that? Have you ever heard anything more ridiculous to do with your life than to bow down before your own delusions, your own insanity? Whether you're aware of it or not, whether those of you listening to this tape are aware of it or not, this is precisely what you have been doing and what you're doing up to this point in your life. You are welcome to it. Count me out. The reason I know you're doing that is because I know that you are suffering. and it's your own fault. I know you're paying the price for misunderstanding, for an unwillingness to do what it is necessary to do in order to cease being the kind of a confused, mixed up, hostile person that you now are. This class and these teachings will help you to make the decision and to repeat the decision 50 times a day, 100 times a day, to reaffirm your determination to find the truth regardless of what it costs you. And what it costs you is to give up your trash. That's what it will cost you. It will cost you your suffering, which you so dearly treasure tonight. One of the happiest days, in fact, the happiest day in the life of any human being is when he or she has caught a glimpse of this really unique way, this truly higher way, has caught a glimpse of it, has caught a small glimpse, but so definite and so rightly emotional that it's impossible to ever forget it. What a beautiful day that is. Because then, when you make that dumb mistake, then when you condemn yourself, then when you feel ashamed, then when you fall away, you can remember this beautiful sight that you once saw internally, and it will call you back to the Father's home. It will call you back. And because you know it's really beautiful, you will go back. You have to hack your way through that jungle you walk stupidly into, or I walk stupidly into. Who cares how much work? We'll hack all day long. You've caught a glimpse of something way out there beyond the jungle. Who cares how much hacking you have to do to get to it? Who cares? I've got the rest of my life to do it. You've got the rest of your life to hack away. That's out there. That's real. I know that. That's where we're going. That is not a lie. Thank heaven there's something that is not a lie. All right, what would you like to talk about? We have quite a bit of time left. Yes, Dottie.
I had a question this week about what all these things we've been talking about, being afraid and anxiety and jealousy and being emotionally identified with these states. Then what is the proper function of emotions? And then you just said the phrase rightly emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the only function of the emotions to draw you to the truth?
This can quite often be a trap to try to understand what a right emotion is. You find out what your wrong emotions are, get rid of those, and you will know from yourself. Now, only a right emotion can draw you persistently, consistently, and emotionally toward the truth itself. If you have a feeling that you want something different from what you now are, that is a right beginning emotion. Start with that. Those of you who were here last night, do you have any final questions or comments on what we covered last night? All right, in that case, this morning we will have a general open discussion and some comments by me on some short sentences from a book that may be published sometime that Joan will read aloud. Now, Joan, will you read all sentences 2 times, please? Now you have an opportunity to begin to listen, to absorb, to do one thing at a time. When she reads these sentences, give your whole mind and your whole attention to it, and try to see that you can't do the simplest act of full attention because your mind is wandering on the wallpaper or over on some emotion that you walked into this room with, didn't you? Give your full attention to what Joan is going to read, please. Read to anyone. It doesn't make a difference which one.
Would it be better?
Sure.
Right.
And read it twice and then sit down and we'll have some comments on it. And if you have any comments on the sentence that will be read, you're free to make them.
People wish kindness, yet are incredibly unkind toward themselves by their rejection of truth. People wish kindness, yet are incredibly unkind toward themselves by their rejection of truth.
Which leaves us with a simple comment. How unkind have you been to yourself the last 24 hours, the last 2 or 3 days? Simply by not living from who you really are. Any alienation from who you really are is very cruel behavior toward yourself. Wasting all this energy on wanting a thrill that is not a part of your authentic nature. Let me slide very gently into a connection with that. One of my favorite illustrations. You can lead an elephant in front of a man, and if he doesn't want to see it, he won't see it. I can talk to you before the meeting, during the break, after the meeting, or talk to you right now as I'm observing your faces here right now. And I can see how unkind you are to yourself by not seeing the split nature, the contradiction that you're living from, which you don't see. Because you're so much in love, so attached to the mechanical flow of your mouth, of your feelings, a preference for sitting in the corner and blabbing out at the world. Never seeing how your own mental blabbing is misery. How many times have you been told to sit here quietly, right now, for example, freshly, instead of being in the contradiction of trying to get something from this class, for example, which is all wrong. For example, leaning on the class itself or leaning on the teacher to give you something. You remember we've also discussed the idea of catching yourself at odd minutes, odd moments, and throwing your entire responsibility back on yourself as a means of developing the potential strength you have in you, that potential strength having no contradiction in it at all and no pain in it at all. I'm afraid you're unable to discipline yourself properly. So at this stage in your development, someone has to do it for you. If you refuse the discipline, goodbye. You wouldn't tolerate 1 minute for other people behaving badly toward you. And yet you tolerate your own bad behavior toward yourself. Are you aware? Let's bring you into this discussion a little bit. And there's not just one example of what I'm going to say. There are hundreds. Are you aware of what it means to engage in destructive behavior toward yourself? Are you aware that you might be engaging in destructive behavior toward yourself on any level, in any way at all? Try to find out where. Then maybe you'll also see what it really means to begin to be kindly toward yourself, which is severe and strict and never-ending self-discipline. Which does not mean that you evade the problem, that you evade your own weakness, evade your own sickness. To the contrary, it means you go more deeply into it than you ever did before, which means to confront it, which means maybe for the first time you will say to yourself, my heavens, what if people find out what I'm really like? I have found it out. I hope they don't find it out. That's beside the point, whether they find out or not. If they find out or not, that would be a nice, shocking education for you. But to find yourself out, to see how contradictory you are, and then go on from there. Comments, questions? Go ahead, Joe.
No one is nice unless he can be so without nice possessions and nice advantages. No one is nice unless he can be so without nice possessions and nice advantages.
Let's take the word advantages and work on it a little bit. May heaven help you if you cling to your supposed advantages, your securities, your comforts, that you're going to have your friend over at a certain hour and you'll feel better, that something good is going to happen to you, or you're going to retire next month. Anything you look forward to will destroy you. Quote, anything you look forward to will destroy you, as it already has. What on earth do you call your advantages, your securities, someone to have, someone to keep you from feeling lonely? Your wife or your husband, your family, your smug little family. You're at the mercy of your smug little family because you're living in delusion. And they will take advantage of you and betray you, and they will cast you aside, and you will cry because you're stupid. How gullible you are. How dumb you are. That you have not put the truth that is asleep in you first. So that you refuse all advantages, so-called advantages. Do you know who God loves? Would you like to know? I'll tell you. God loves anyone who refuses advantages. What a rush of power, right power, energy, right inspiration You will feel and live from when you refuse what the world is trying to give you. You refuse it absolutely. No. You'll feel the love of God, which is not just a religious phrase. Because you have gotten tough with yourself. You're not going to settle for that kind word from that nice man, from that pretty woman, from that boss, from that social organization, from that religious or political organization. You are not going to take a thing. Now look what's happened to you. You're all alone, aren't you? Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that you have begun to see through those sick, raving relatives of yours? You thought they were some of them. Some of them you saw as stupid. And you know what else? Because you are asleep, you saw some of them as strong, as wise. You know that relative who tosses off those very, quote mark, profound remarks about politics and religion? He tosses them off as if he knows what he's talking about. And you grabbed onto it and felt a certain surge of comfort. How blind can you get? Why don't you take a look at that man when he's off guard? Why don't you listen when 1 minute later, after making that profound remark, you hear him say something that tells you that he's scared? And you're going to attribute wisdom and strength to him? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're permitting him or her to destroy your soul. You don't even see it. That's the tragedy. You don't see what you have permitted that other person, that organization, that group of people, that man you love, that woman you love, that woman you love, that man you love, that group you love, that family you love, is leading you into the jungle. And when they get you out there, guess what? They leave you. They'll leave you right out there and trample you as they walk away. And this is not a figure of speech. And if you think it is, you had better wake up fast. The advantages they are getting from you is all that keeps them from jumping on you and using you to walk out of the marsh on. The advantages they are still getting from you, and you don't even see it because you are still trying to do it to them. And don't kid me that you're not. The reason you would do it to them is because you are desperate, because you are lost in the marsh in that jungle, and you have no conscience at all. You don't care what happens to them as long as you think you can get out, and the whole thing is a delusion. So you walk on them to get out, and now you'll have to find someone else to walk on to get out. And so you go from one person to another, destroying him or her as well as yourself. You begin today to refuse all so-called advantages that someone offers you, so that you become 50 times more scared than you now are, so that you can begin to recover your real strength, which doesn't need anyone except as it is proper on the everyday level. We need other people socially. We like to have friends. Sometimes we like to be with people. And as a natural opposite, we like to be alone, right? If you like to be alone all the time, there's something wrong with you. If you must have someone around all the time, there's something wrong with you. You're not alternating naturally in the natural opposites of being with others and being alone. Why? Why up to this point in your life have you refused what God has offered you? You know what he's offered you? Listen, he's offered you a life of your own, and you have idiotically traded it with those idiots in your life. And you won't listen when someone tries to tell you different. Farewell. Read the next one, John.
The truly necessary and vital is to realize that we are here on earth to rise above ourselves. The truly necessary and vital is to realize that we are here on earth to rise above ourselves.
Look at your life. Look at the way your mind operates. Listen to what you say. Listen to what you feel. Listen to what you demand. And try to see where you are calling something necessary. See what you are calling necessary, and then make a simple but hard effort to drop it, to live without it. Go against the demand that this necessary item, person, event, activity, whatever, thought. Try to see that what you have called unnecessary is not necessary to your authentic well-being at all. And you can do that by detecting yourself in action every minute and seeing where you are indeed divided while performing this activity. While you're split, while you're in strain, or you're not quite sure of yourself. What are you calling, in short, what are you calling necessary that is not necessary at all? For example, we covered last night a lot of negative emotions. Take the emotion of malice. Where do you harbor malice? Because you take that as necessary to protect and promote what you call yourself. Malice. A brooding malice which you have deep inside of you and which you don't see, but which you suffer from. Let me tell you that all malice is unnecessary. Isn't it strange? If I tell you that poison is unnecessary to your health, you would have to stop and think about what I just said, wouldn't you? I said poison is unnecessary to your health. There's something wrong with that sentence, isn't it? It doesn't sound right. Poison is unnecessary to my health. Well, of course it is. And yet I tell you that malice is unnecessary to your inner health. And it doesn't strike you as odd because you unconsciously take it as right and necessary and protective. Oh, you don't think you have malice, is that it? Just wait till I touch you in the wrong place. Just wait till I get personal with you some way. Watch what happens. Just wait till you feel jealous of someone else. Just wait till you feel that at last you have power to injure someone. It's been the world's chance to injure me all the time. Now, what a great day of my life. I have a chance to strike back. And even the feeling of pleasure, even the beginning feeling of pleasure, whether you actually hurt someone else or not, that feeling itself is a sign there's something seriously wrong with your life and with your mind. You know that odd feeling of pleasure you have when you catch someone else in even a minor mistake? Thank heaven it wasn't me this time, it was him. I'd like to see how some of you in this room would behave if, by the law of accident, you were put in a position where you could have great power on the earthly level over other human beings. I would like to see how you behave, and I pity anyone under you. And I pity you. The only thing that is necessary for us as men and women on earth is to begin to work hard on ourselves and free ourselves of ourselves. That is what is good and decent and necessary, and nothing else. Look, do you want to please your wife, your family, that stupid social organization you belong to, those insane members of that social organization? Do you mean to tell me, here you are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and you go down to that meeting hall, you go to your relative's house, and you walk in that door trying to please them? Can't you see what is happening? Tomorrow thy soul shall be required of thee. Quote. And you don't even know it. You're going to please all those people so they'll give you an advantage, and you don't even know you're going to die tomorrow. How dumb can we get? You stop pleasing people, and you start pleasing truth. Every time you have the motive of pleasing someone so that they'll be pleased with you, you have stolen the kingdom of heaven from yourself. And I'll say for perhaps the 20th time in this group, if that's what you choose, goodbye. You go to your relative's house and you talk about politics or horse races and waste your life. It is not necessary to please anyone. As if you can please that neurotic friend of yours anyway, that psychopathic relative of yours, as if you can please them anyway, and you know it. And I'll tell you how you know it. Because you're afraid of ceasing to fawn before them. You know what's going to happen when you stop giving them what they demand. Look, let me tell you what to do. You get right up out of that chair. You walk right out of that house, that relative's house. You walk right out of that organization building. You walk right outside of that church. You walk right out of that and you go home. And you stay home. And you stay home and you suffer. And you cry and scream. And by doing that, you'll get well. Because the courage you had to get up and walk out of that insane asylum, God will recognize that as rightness and will love you for it. And when you go home and cry and say, but what am I going to do now? Shall I phone them? Don't you phone. Don't you go back. You stay there and cry and scream and be afraid of death. And God will help you. Even when you don't know it. Even when you don't feel it. I will tell you that's a beautiful experience. You're suffering fully instead of diluting it with those nutty people out there. You're coming face to face with your own horror. And that is what God loves. That is your prayer, and that prayer will be answered. And all of a sudden, in the middle of your crying and your desperation, you will get up and you'll sit back in your chair and you'll be very silent for a minute and you won't know what's happening to you. But for the first time, you will sense that something real, something right, something true, something decent, something wonderful is happening to you. Because your prayer, your first prayer, God help me, has now been answered. Because you have died a little bit to dependency on something outside of yourself. You repeat this as many times a day as you can. You can do it mentally. You don't have to get up physically to walk out of that house, that organization building. You can do it mentally 50 times a day. Simply say, if I'm going to be afraid of leaving my familiar ways, my familiar feelings, my comfort of being with people who think like I do, who act like I do, even if I'm afraid to drop being with people who think like I do, I'm going to do it. I don't care what I have to go through. If I have to go home and roll on the floor, I'm not going back. And I hope you get emotional too. And you had better. Because then you'll get Dottie right feeling. Oh, by the way, this, what we discussed, is the way out. Let's take a break.
I am comfortable in my mental fog.
Yes. Put quote marks around the word comfortable.
We don't know we're in a fog. We think this is all we've known, so we think this is the norm.
This is all there is.
Yeah.
This is all there is. My misery is all there is. So I cling to that, lest I die.
I am afraid of the effort to dissolve it.
We're afraid of the effort to dissolve it, she said.
Or what will happen if the fog goes.
Okay. You understand, do you not, that if we're in confusion, that is our love? Mm-hmm. Did you ever dream that you are in love with your confusion and wouldn't part for it for anything until you see what it is really doing to you? Until catching that first glimpse of something other than the fog? How many of you just love to argue, either outwardly or inwardly? You know what I mean. How many of you like to argue with yourself? Don't you see that you are loving your fog? Don't you have the courage to give up your inner arguing? You watch the battle that you have when you say to yourself, you know, I caught myself thinking about this difficulty that I have with, say, with another person. I have this difficulty with that person. I see how my mind says, do this, do that. And one minute I'm telling the other person off, the next minute I'm putting on an act of being kindly to them because I feel guilty probably. Do you have the courage to say, I'm not going to try to solve this problem on the level of intellect at all anymore? I'm going to see what happens by giving up my attempt to solve it on the level of the intellect, because I now see that that is where it originates. And the mind that got me into the bog can't lead me out of it. It can only lead me around the bog, falling into one pit after another. But I'm so sick that I even love the pain of falling into the pit. And then I can complain and blame someone else for leading me into the pit. That gives me a pretty good thrill. Blame someone else for getting me down there. And then pretending that I want God to get me out of it. All I want is to try to get rid of the pain so I can go on to the next pit and enjoy the pain of the next pit. I don't want to get out of the pit. I want a new pit with a new thrill in it. I like variations on the thrill. When will we stop loving agony? Repeat. And repeat to those of you listening to this tape. When will we stop loving agony? We are in open discussion anytime we want to be. And if there's nothing to say out there, then Joan can read another sentence. Yeah, 1 second, Joan, please. Juanita.
I hold on to the fog because I'm afraid if that goes, I will be bored.
That's very good. And you're bored in the fog anyway, aren't you? Right? The fog is terribly boring. Slow down. How many of you are bored? If you love thrills, you're bored, whether you know it or not. And you will be afraid of the old thrill passing away before you've got your hands on the next one. Boredom is the space between two thrills. Boredom is the space between two thrills. And when you're ready, Joan, no hurry.
A demon consists of a negative thought, a cherished delusion, a clever falsehood, a destructive emotion. A demon consists of a negative thought, a cherished delusion, a clever falsehood, a destructive emotion.
Yes, please. Nice and loud, please.
A demon consists of a negative thought, a cherished delusion, a clever falsehood, a destructive emotion.
By that definition, how many of you are demon-possessed? Tell me something. We've seen a lot in the paper and in books and magazines and on TV about demon possession. Does this frighten any of you in any way? Have you seen old horror movies of demons coming down the stairs at night and you fear that maybe they're living inside of you? Well, I've got news for you. They are. You are your own haunted house. You are your own haunted house. But I'll tell you something else. Your fear of the demons in you is what keeps them going in you. I don't care what kind of demon it is, what form it takes, whether it's nervousness or fawning before another person, whatever it might be. Your fear of it, which is on the mechanical level, you see something in yourself that's wrong, then you get scared of that. You have kept the demon going. You have kept it going by worshiping it. Do you know what most religious people do? I hope this shocks you. They worship the devil in the name of God. Now you just get thoroughly shocked at that. Most religious people worship the devil in the name of God. Boy, I hope you don't see that all at once, or we'll have to pick you up off the floor and give you what do they revive people with? Smelling salts. Do you think this might apply to you? I will tell you that it does. What are you falsely worshiping that is destroying you? What are you falsely worshiping that is destroying you? Okay, I'll tell you how to get rid of it, how to be free of it. you see that the worshiper of this false demon, this negative thought, whatever it might be, you will see that the worshiper is not you at all. It is not your name at all. It has no real connection with you at all. You think it does, because you've been told that it does. You've been told that you're evil, for example. So you say, I'm evil. So you've got all these identifications of being evil, which you love. And so this keeps us on the level of mechanical repetition, of seeing something wrong in us, and then worshiping it because it gives us an ego thrill of existing as some kind of a person, even a frightened person. You give up your pleasure of being scared. Write that down. I will give up my pleasure of being scared. I will give up my pleasure of being scared. You see, and in another way of looking at it, the demon that I fear is me. Because in my present state of misunderstanding, of delusion, I am the demon itself. This is what I think I consist of. And indeed, if I think I consist of something bad, then this is all there is of me in my present low level of development. I take myself being a bad person, all right? That is what I am. Therefore, I am worshiping my own badness because this is all I know. And every time I get troubled, I go back to worshiping this badness because now I am a bad person. Even I'm a bad person that God can save. But at least I'm a bad person. We're worshiping our demon in ourselves. After long and hard work, we begin to see the dumb mistake we have made all our life. Made the mistake on the level of the intellect, one part of us worshiping another part of us. And that worship of one part by another part gives us a certain excitement. It makes me somebody. It makes me even somebody who is seeking truth or God, and it's a lie. I understand that quite clearly. I understand that quite clearly. I fall away. I disappear as someone who is afraid of myself because the idea that I am someone whom I should fear even falls away because I see I'm not even that. Do you mean to say I have to give up the pleasure I have of fearing myself? Yes. Do you see how profound this is? How you're going to have to see every little corner of it? So that the next time you see something frightening in yourself, you say no. Demon in me, you are not going to trick me anymore. I am fed up to my ears with being scared of you. And I'm not going to do it anymore. And I'm not going to listen to anyone who tells me how to behave wrongly toward myself. I'm not going to listen to my own delusion that says if I pray to God, just pray to God to deliver me from evil, that he will. I've got to see what I'm talking about. I've got to see the blunder I'm making. Otherwise, I'll spend my life being scared one second and praying the next, and being scared the next and praying the next. I want to put an end to my insanity. I want to put an end to my insanity. And a complete understanding of all we've talked about this morning will help me to do this. Then I won't pray to God anymore, but I'll be one with it. I won't be an egotist anymore saying, God, help me. I had to start with that because this is, your first prayer starts on the level of the intellect. You're tired of being sick. Aren't you tired of being sick? Okay, that's a proper prayer. Being tired of being sick is a proper prayer. And it's on the level of the intellect, of the mind. Good, great, congratulations. Now go on from there. So that you don't have to repeat over and over and over, God help me. You give God an opportunity to help you as you begin to disappear as you. Do you have another one, Joan?
One more. Imaginary life has great power to control and wreck people because it insists it is not imaginary life. Imaginary life has great power to control and wreck people because it insists it is not imaginary life.
Once more.
Imaginary life has great power to control and wreck people because it insists it is not imaginary life.
All right. It's very simple, isn't it? How many of you have had problems this week? Any kind of problem, whatever. Any kind. All right. Now look. Now, how many, oh, look, let's go way back. How many of you think that truth, is truth good or bad? Which is it?
Good.
Truth good? Truth good. All right. Now, if truth were really controlling our lives, then could truth invite bad things to happen in us, inwardly or outwardly? See how clear and logic we are already? Truth is good. Truth cannot permit something bad to go through my mind, demon thoughts, for example, tormenting emotion, shame, fear of going to hell, and all that. So truth is good. Now, if bad things happen to me during the week, either up here in my head or out in the social world, if bad things happen to me, am I living a life of truth, which is good, or a life of imagination, which is bad? Which is it? See? So if we can simply begin to understand that anytime anything pains me up here, or in my feelings, or in my relation with you, anything, a small thing or an enormous thing, anything that pains me, I've got it. I was not living from truth within. I was living from a counterfeit, from an imagination that this is the way to behave. Something went wrong, I got disappointed. Something went wrong, I became gloomy. All right. To be gloomy good or bad for me?
Bad.
All right. I feel gloomy. So I say, now gloom is bad. But I also understand at the same time what a nut I am, that I actually enjoy my gloom. And I'm so mixed up that my depression, this gloom, is called good because it gives me a feeling. Now let me explore the nature of this gloomy feeling, which I have called good. I will catch my first glimpse of what it means to live in self-destructive behavior, calling it good and right and necessary behavior. I will see that gloom, being connected with imaginary life, is killing me, not preserving me. Gloom is taking away life instead of giving me life. Gloom is giving me death, which I have called life, because if I'm gloomy, that gives me something to do with myself. I can complain. I can run a mental movie of how I've been mistreated by everybody. My God, what I've discovered.